Welcome to the Roy Rundown, a podcast designed to share insights and secrets from top experts in the college sports landscape, guiding you along your own path to success. Join us in real time as we build Roy, dive into the latest NIL trends, and uncover stories from the movers and shakers in the sports business space. You'll hear from an all-star lineup of guests, including athletes, coaches, agents, fans, athletic administrators, and more. Whether you're a student athlete, passionate fan, or anyone in between, this is your go-to resource for leveling up in the new age of college sports.
Welcome back to the Roy Rundown. Today we've got another game-changing college athlete joining us, originally from Hudsonville, Michigan, a leader on and off the court, currently a center for the Iowa Hawkeyes women's basketball team, AJ Ediger. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's great to have you here. We're gonna dive into many things about your recruiting, your career, what your aspirations are after the game. But I'll give you the stage here to tell the audience a little bit about maybe your upbringing. I know you had a little bit different upbringing than most. I believe you grew up around a lot of animals. So let's just start with that, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I am the youngest of four girls, so I'm the baby. And I do think maybe the babies in the families are spoiled just a little bit. But I grew up on my grandparents' farm in Hudsonville, Michigan. They're very famous for their donuts. So if you're ever in the Hudsonville, Michigan area, look up Post Family Farm. Their donuts are phenomenal. But grew up around, again, like you said, a lot of animals. Grew up on the farm, run around barefoot with all my cousins. I was homeschooled as well up until my freshman year of high school, along with also four other of my cousins. So we were just running rampant around the farm growing up, on the loose constantly. But horses, pigs, cows, like you name it, we had it on the farm. So I think growing up around that was really, really fun, especially with my cousins, and like we got really close through that. But we did get some schoolwork done. I promise you that. I did take some rounding up every now and then, but I think that was probably the main focal point of my childhood, growing up. And then also, I played sports. My mom was a coach for our homeschool basketball program. So all my sisters played sports. I just always grew up around sports. I was born into basketball. So, 6 years old on the sideline, doing ball handling stuff, trying to get in with my 8-year-old sisters and 10, 12-year-old sisters, trying to hop in practice. They didn't like it. My mom thought it was cute at the time, but my sisters were not really a big fan of that. They told me I had to wait a few more years, but I think that's kind of rounds up at least my childhood.
That's usually how it goes with older siblings.
Yes, I would agree.
And so at what point did you realize that you're pretty good at basketball? And I guess at what point did you realize that you wanted to play at the next level?
Honestly, I feel like kind of late. It wasn't until I got my first D1 offer. I was in 8th grade, I believe. I got my first D1 offer, and I was like, whoa, wow, I could actually really do that. But I think, 8th grade, and I knew that I was pretty good. Growing up, you can tell in basketball when you're pretty good. It's you get told by your family, as much as my sisters like to humble me, make sure I was, not getting too big of a head. But I really was not until I got my first offer. And even then I was still kind of questioning it, I don't know if I'm good enough for that. But I had some coaches that were very encouraging, helped me out a lot.
8th grade is pretty rare to have your first offer in 8th grade. So obviously you knew you were pretty good. And then so take me through, I guess, the next couple of years into high school, and the recruiting process continues, and ultimately I want to hear why you selected Iowa.
Mhm.
And word has it that your high school mascot, I believe, was a Hawkeye as well. Was that always meant to be? Is that true?
Yeah, we were the Hamilton Hawkeyes. Same
Okay.
color scheme. I believe once upon a time, I'm not 100% sure. Somebody told me this though, that like our high school was in danger of a lawsuit from the University of Iowa because we had the same exact mascot as the University of Iowa,
I
which
believe it.
wasn't
I believe
okay.
it.
So, not 100% sure, but that might have happened. But yeah, we were the same colors and everything. So, my parents really appreciated that, transitioning into college, that they didn't have to go and buy a bunch of new colors and stuff like that to go to my games and support. But yeah, that is true.
They said that your high school could keep the mascot as long as you committed there, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
And so let's talk about selecting Iowa. Like what was it about Iowa? Obviously, you know Iowa's women's basketball is a household name, right, in this country. But for people that are listening that might not be as familiar with like campus and the culture there, talk a
Mhm.
little bit about Iowa and like why you selected it and what the culture is like.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have any family members that went D1. My mom and some of my aunts played at a D3 level, which looks a lot different than D1. So we were all kind of like new to the whole scene and how the recruiting process worked, how college like unofficial and official visits and everything like that worked. So it was a little bit of a shock to the system, trying to figure it all out. But I think Iowa, like the coaching staff they have here, they've been working together, majority of them for over 20 years. So just knowing that like even if I may have been feeling overwhelmed and felt like I didn't know like what I was doing, they knew what they were doing. They always did. And they're very good at making sure that my family felt like I was going to be taken care of, and I felt like I was going to be taken care of. So I think overall, just the culture that the coaching staff here at the University of Iowa has made sure to build is phenomenal. And I don't think there's really anything anywhere else like it, at least in the places that I visited. So I think that was a really big um, seller for me, I guess, was the coaching staff for sure. Because I mean, you spend a lot of time around them, so having a coaching staff that you know is trying to recruit people that not only are like phenomenal at basketball, but phenomenal human beings as well. Um, I think that was a really big part for me for sure.
Yeah, and let's talk about getting onto campus now. I want to talk about two things in specific. First is as soon as you get there early on, and we talked about this a little bit before, I want to talk about your role, right? Because obviously you said you got your first offer in eighth grade, and then you go the next 4 years where you everything's going through you. You're the top scorer. You're getting the ball, and then you become a freshman at an elite level of college basketball, and your role kind of changes a bit. So talk about that.
Mhm. I think it's definitely a shock to the system, and I know I mean everyone goes through it. Like there is very, very rare cases where you don't go through it. Example A, Caitlin Clark. But I mean, once in a lifetime basketball player, like insane. Um, but I think it takes a lot more of a mental toll on you than you think it will, going into it. But I mean, it was rough. It was hard for sure. It's not easy. I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's easy or that it's fun. But I think it took me a couple years until I was able to transition into a different mindset of realizing that like just because I'm not contributing on the court doesn't mean there aren't other ways that I can contribute. So finding my footing in a different way. I mean, my whole life, like that was my role, was to be like one of the top scorers, one of the leaders on the court. So trying to transition into a different role was hard. But I mean, I had teammates around me that really helped out. We have sports psychologists on hand, which we're very lucky and fortunate to have them. So I think just being able to recognize that like what I'm feeling is hard to manage, and being able to like reach out and find different ways to get help in that sense. And I mean, once again, everybody has gone through it. So like being able to lean on your teammates who have gone through exactly what you're going through, definitely helped me through it for sure.
Yeah, and I think you touched on this earlier. Is it allowed you to find different skill sets and different ways to lead, not just by example, but whether it's communication or helping out another teammate, and not just putting the ball in the basket. It allowed you to kind of perfect your craft as a leader, which I think is phenomenal. And so the second part I want to transition to, and you can start as you just transition into Iowa, is getting around the Hawkeye Nation, right? And just the fan support, obviously, which has been tremendous over the past several years. Talk about Hawkeye Nation, talk about the fans, during the games and how much they really fuel you guys.
Yeah, I'd say my first ever experience with the Hawkeye fan base was I was on an unofficial visit. I think it was probably like 15, 14, 16, somewhere around there. And we were walking downtown, and the band comes through downtown, is like marching through downtown, and there's like a bunch of, and they're like singing the fight song. There's a bunch of people like singing it with them, just like around. I was like, oh my God, like what is going on right now? And then ever since then, I mean, it's kind of the same reaction. I mean, running out for your first game and having a like packed gym, just like, oh my God, what is going on right now? And I've had a lot of those moments throughout my career as the Iowa Hawkeye. And I kind of said it earlier, but I think honestly, like the University of Iowa, for any and all of their sports teams, have some of, if not the best fan base. I mean, we're a college town. Everybody is supporting the Hawkeyes, football games, women's basketball games, men's basketball games. Like you just know there's always going to be a turnout, and you can always count on having fans to like be there to support you.
I know you just told that story about being downtown and seeing the marching band, but I know you love interactions with fans. Is there a certain time that comes to mind that like was just game changing for you, or you got to interact with the fan, or maybe someone stopped you, after a game or on campus, or in Iowa City, that you just got to interact with a fan that you have never met before?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably my sophomore, either last year or my sophomore year. And like, honestly, like, usually I'm the one like taking pictures for people, like with my teammates. And like, I'm fine with that. Honestly, I really was. But like, I was like, oh, like, here, like, I'll take it for you. And she's like, no, like, I want you to be in it. And I was like, what? Like,
Me?
okay, like, are you sure? Because I can really take this picture. She's like, no, I want you to be in it. I was like, okay. And I think again that just kind of went with the publicity that our team has gathered, especially over the past 2 years. But I think just any reactions like downtown, like somebody was riding their bike and like hopped off their bike and turned around and walked back to me like, "You're AJ Ediger." I said, "Yes, I am." And like took a picture of me. I was like, "Okay, this is kind of, I like this, I think, but this is a lot to take in." But I think just little moments like that, they just kind of catch you off guard. I think those are probably my favorite moments. And you're always met with so much joy and so much like love and appreciation, just for like your team and everything like that. So I think just those little moments for sure have been my favorite.
Yeah, and I think sometimes athletes forget how much they impact the fans as well. And obviously, a lot of that comes from transparently winning basketball games and being
Hmm.
successful that you guys are pretty good at. Obviously, you're off to a hot start this season. So,
Yeah.
talk about the team real quick. I guess two topics I'd love for you to chat about. One is your Final Four experience. You're coming off a Final Four experience, a national championship game, and then heading into this year where you guys are off to a hot start and you have some unfinished business to claim, right?
Mm. I think just going back to the past, I mean, two back-to-back Final Four appearances, just going back to that. I honestly don't think it's on set in. Yeah, just like that whole experience. And I think it's really gonna take me like a couple of years to be able to like look back at those experiences and be like, wow, like that's like those were historic moments that I got to be a part of. And again, just kind of going back to the fan base too on that, just having fans travel like so well everywhere you go, like everywhere was Carver North, like all that stuff was just incredible. So I think that for sure has been just seriously mind-boggling. Like haven't been able to wrap my mind about around it, and then also just having that support like carried in. I think, especially like on the internet, there's going to be a lot of different opinions and stuff like that, but like what our teams can do. So transitioning from a national championship appearance last year into a almost completely new team. There's a lot of different opinions out there. And I think just having that consistent, I mean, our season was sold out again, and we're a completely new team. So having that unwavering support from our fan base has been kind of all really that we need. The rankings and the polls, all that stuff can come out, but honestly, we're just focused on being the best team that we can be, and staying tight to our circle, and just appreciate any and all support that we get from our fan base.
Love it. So let's transition a little bit to one of the parts that is a reality of college sports moving forward forever is NIL, right? And I think whether you're a player or you're a fan or you're a former player or you're a coach, and you hear NIL, everybody has different thoughts. So I guess just right off the bat, like what's been your perspective and your takeaway from NIL and how it's affected you and your teammates since it's been live here for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I'm super grateful for any and all. I think everyone is super grateful for any and all opportunities that we've gotten through NIL. And I think that it was kind of a long time coming. I think it's something that athletes have deserved for a long time. I mean, just the amount of time commitment and effort that we put in. And again, like the amount of revenue that we create for the university through like having very successful seasons and also just having a phenomenal fan base. I think that's well deserved. And also at the same time, it can be like really confusing. Like I think everyone's still trying to figure out NIL and like how to sort it out and what rules should be in place, like how it should be handled. So I think just making sure that like, yes, like do what you need to do, like make some money, but also like don't forget like the whole reason why we're like doing what we're doing is because we love the sport. It's not because we want to make money. So I think just making sure that me and everyone on my team is locked into like what the real reason is and why we're here, and enjoying the perk again. Very grateful, but I think especially our team has done, I think, a phenomenal job at we don't even really talk about it. We just really don't. We just go in the gym and play basketball.
Yeah, that's great. And I know you mentioned perk, but I think I'll double down on it for you because I know you mentioned it, but it's also earned, right? It's a strange time because fans aren't sure what to think about it and what to do and how to support, but it's earned, right? And
Yeah.
again, it comes down to the love of the game, but also the business side. And for 100+ years, athletes have been generating revenue, whether it's merchandise or ticket sales, and getting quite literally 0% of those revenues, right? And so now it's just an opportunity for fans to have another way to support.
Yeah.
And so, I know obviously here at Roy, allowing fans to support specific athletes is one of the functions of the Roy app. But I'm curious to hear kind of what your take on it is, and maybe a couple of things that you like about Roy.
Mm. I'd say kind of going off of what you said, the individuality of it, being able to support specific athletes instead of giving your money to a collective. When people want to support a specific athlete and not like being sure where exactly the money is that they're giving to a collective is going. So I think Roy kind of solves that problem and gives fans the opportunity to contribute specifically to who they want to contribute. And also, I feel like it does a great job of decluttering the NIL area, everything that's going on with that. Because again, like I said, they're still trying to figure out a lot of how it should be run and what rules need to be in place to like protect athletes, but also universities, and stuff like that. So I think Roy does a really good job of like clearing the air a little bit on that. And also, I like the feature of you don't get the money right away. I feel like with a lot of the NIL stuff that you do now, it's like you make a post, you post it, and you get the money right away, which is great. But I think that having it collect over time until the end of your season through the Roy app, and being able to like save that money and then having it at the end, and also like the feature where if you leave the university, you don't get that money, it gets refunded back to the fan base. I think that's a great way to try to retain athletes a little bit more at universities. So I think those are probably the main features that I've really appreciated and enjoyed through the Roy app.
Yeah, well, I mean, you hit a lot of the values that we're hoping to provide for sure. And I know you mentioned the collective, and for us, it's the collectives have been great because they obviously have spurred a lot of dollars to athletes. But what we found is that it's really geared towards a lot of high end boosters or wealthy boosters and corporate dollars, which again is great and needed. But what it leaves out is the everyday fan and the fan that wants to support a specific athlete, or maybe a fan that one of the thousands and thousands of fans that bought season tickets the last 2 years that have sold out that want to support Iowa women's basketball. It's an opportunity for them to do that, because if you do give to a general fund at whatever university you're at, you're not sure exactly where those dollars go. So if you want to support Iowa women's basketball and a specific player, you can do that through Roy, and that's kind of one of the things that we touched on. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I think there's a lot of value there, but NIL is talked about in a negative fashion in so many different ways. But it also, and I'd be curious to hear your perspective, like it allows athletes to highlight the good that they're doing, right, and impact more, because not every athlete that gets some NIL money is going to buy a mansion with it, or buy a boat or buy crazy things. It's like I know so many athletes that are using some of the financial gains they're making to give back, whether it's a charity or an organization, whatever. Have you experienced some of that similar stuff with you and your teammates?
I'm not really sure specifically. I know, yeah, I don't know any of my teammates specifically. I know that former teammates have done like started organizations
Yeah.
and stuff like that for at-risk youth and youth in the community. But again, like our team really does not talk about NAL within like our locker room. I think that's something that really helps us keep a very like clean and knit together environment and culture. It's just really not something that we focus on, or it's not ever really a topic of conversation within our team. So I'm sure that I do have athletes that are doing really cool stuff like that on my team. But again, we just really do not talk about that topic in our locker room.
It's an interesting angle, because I think in some locker rooms they do, and that's almost disastrous. And obviously for you guys, you don't, and maybe that's a direct correlation to the success you're having this season, which is interesting. Well, let's shift topics here as we start to wrap up. I want to talk about, because a lot of people know Iowa women's basketball and AJ on the court, and that you're pretty good at basketball. But what about AJ off the court? I know you're involved with a lot of social justice programs on campus, and you have the executive of diversity inclusion there, on campus. But talk about that a little bit, and maybe some of the things you do off the court.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, a lot of the focus is like what you've done in basketball, and stuff like that, and the opportunities that you've gotten like within the basketball realm. But I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I've gotten outside of basketball through the university and through just like being an athlete. So again, I am for our Iowa Student Athlete Advisory Committee, I'm the executive of diversity and inclusion through that. And then I'm also the president of our multicultural focus groups at the University of Iowa. So and those are both things that you need to be athletes to be a part of and lead. So I think having those opportunities, it's really given me life skills and career skills and experience going into, I mean, I'm not going to be able to be an athlete forever. So having the opportunity to develop those skills so that I can go into the world and feel like I'm prepared for a work environment that's not working out on the court. So I think that's something I've been super, super grateful for, and something I'm really passionate about. Like you said, kind of, you can guess, I'm really passionate about social justice. I don't think just the idea of people being treated unfairly for something they can't control really rubs me the wrong way, has since I was a little girl. So I think I think the University of Iowa does a really good job having environments where there's specific focuses on trying to create environments for everybody, where everyone feels value and everyone can have the opportunity to have their voice heard. Is something that I've been really appreciative of at the University of Iowa.
As mentioned in the beginning, obviously making an impact on the court, but yeah, some of the stuff you're doing off the court is tremendous. So, all right, well, last thing I have for you here, I promise that I'll let you go, is called the Roy Rundown Rapid Fire. So I shoot a bunch of questions at you, and the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
So you got this. We'll start with an easy one. What's your favorite color?
Purple. Not purple, green. It's green. Sage green to be exact.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. If you had to play a sport other than what you're playing now, which would it be?
Volleyball.
If you could have a dream NIL deal with one company, what's one that comes to mind?
Oh, that's good. Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be rapid fire.
It makes you think.
Maybe Uggs. I
It's
really
a
like
good
my
one.
Uggs. I wear them every day.
There you go. Who is the funniest person on the team?
Jada Jimphy.
If you could trade places with anyone in the world and live 1 year in their shoes, who's one of the first people that comes to your mind?
Adele or Billie Eilish?
What's one of your biggest strengths?
Empathy.
Who is one of the first people to really believe in you?
My mom.
What's one of your biggest fears?
Ooh, getting lost. Never being able to find my way back.
And last one here, what's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, maybe 5 or 10 years ago?
I'd say fear of embarrassment is the killer of potential and success.
Ooh, I'm going to go back and write that one down. That's a great one. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, AJ, I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you got a busy schedule. We're all huge fans over here at Roy, and we've loved following you girls this season, and we know there's a lot of success coming to you. So thanks again for being on, and we'll hopefully see you on the court soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.